This program is brought to you by the Reeves Law Firm, representing you and your Social Security and disability needs. If you have a problem or questions regarding Social Security and disability, call attorney Anthony Reeves, toll free at 1-888-962-0007. Again, that's 1-888-962-0007. Or go to www.reevesfirm.com.
Welcome to another edition of Q&A Social Security Disability Today. I am your host, Attorney Anthony Reeves. Let's get to your questions. Will Social Security conduct a disability review if I've attempted to try to go to work? All right, this might be a little complicated, so stay with me. A continuing disability review, and I've talked about this before, is designed for Social Security to determine whether or not they believe you are still disabled. Sometimes people say, well, they'll ask, well, will they do a work CDR? And I sometimes chuckle because I'm like, what do you mean by a work CDR? I said, I've never heard of that. It's a CDR. It's a continuing disability review. And it could be done for a variety of reasons. It could be done because you have a medical condition that they think should rationally improve after a fixed period of time. Let's say you had a bad car accident and you've gone through the therapy and everything like that. Maybe at the time they felt like, you know what, give them a year, and then after a year, come back and take a look at it again, because they think after a year you're improved. Well, let's go ahead and also say another condition. Let's say that when it's just a standard random review they do anyway. I always tell people that Social Security doesn't believe you're going to be disabled forever, so they're going to do reviews. And sometimes they'll do a review even without anything spectacular happening. They're just doing it to make sure you're still disabled. Then people can get concerned about work. And this is where it gets tricky. Most people are aware that under the regulations, you have what's called a trial work period, which means you can actually test the job market to see whether or not you're able to reintegrate into the workforce and it not be held against you. But now here's what I tell people sometimes, is that it's not going to be held against you financially for your benefits, depending on the program you have. I've had other videos talking about that, so if you ever want me to talk about trial work period and all that good stuff, we'll talk about it in a separate video. The question here is, what happens if I'm working? Will that necessarily kick off a CDR? Absolutely. Because remember, this is where I tell people, when you are applying for disability benefits, you're telling the government that your condition is so disabling that you're not able to work. That's what you're doing. So guess what? If you're working, that's going to alert them. Now, let's back it up a second, because some of you are probably freaking out going, oh my God, I'm not going to do any work. That's not what I'm telling you. I'm telling you, and I'm hoping that you've kind of got this. If any of you follow my videos fairly consistently, you'll notice that there's one thing that I've tried to articulate over and over again. Stop fixating on one sole thing, and fixate more on the bigger picture, which means what? Well, some people will think in their mind that if Social Security sees an alert that there were earnings, that automatically means it's going to trigger a CDR. Possibly, yeah. But trust, no one wants you to sit on the couch. You probably want to get back out into the workforce. So if you decide to go back out into the workforce, pay attention to the circumstances of you going back out into the workforce. Now you would say, what do you mean by the circumstance? Think about it. When you went back to work to test the workforce, were you working part-time? Were you working full-time? Did you have to call in sick a lot? Were you going in late? Were you leaving early? Were you having problems when you were there? Did you have to quit the job because even though you tried, you had all kind of problems because you couldn't make it through a work day? You had to take multiple breaks. You gotten written up because of the problems that you were having. Maybe you tried for a while and then you got sick and you stopped and you kept trying, but you just could not make it. For whatever instance, you need to be prepared to discuss in detail how you going back into the workforce affected you. So that this way, if Social Security decides to do a review based on the fact that you've gone into the workforce, that you're not sitting there going saying, oh, I went back to work, but I couldn't do anything. Well, that doesn't tell the government anything. You've got to be prepared, and you want to be detailed. Let them know this is what happened. And these are the circumstances behind how I stopped working or behind me working. So that this way, when they're looking at all of your medical records, and in addition, and keep in mind, it's not solely that you're working, it's the working coupled with your medical records as well and the circumstances. You want to be able to give Social Security a complete picture of your condition. People, I can't say this any clearer. Social Security does not expect you to be disabled forever. So a review could happen because of they think your condition will improve, because they've gotten an alert that there's earnings so that you've been working. It could be just because they've got a schedule. Don't freak out, because what happens is a lot of people, when you fought so hard to get disability benefits, that this is your only livelihood right now. Trust. Social Security understands that, and they're not looking to dick you off of it, but it is I'm going to say this a million times, it is your responsibility to demonstrate you're disabled. So if you've tested the job market and it has not worked for you, you've got to be prepared to show Social Security why they should not cease your benefits for medical improvement solely because you tested out the job market or even went back to work. Now, here's the one that pops up a little bit more so now. I'll get people say, okay, assuming that I tried to go back to work and I actually found a job, but it's a part-time job and I'm only doing it for a little bit, maybe 2 or 3 hours a day. Well, what about then? And I'm not even making as much money to kick in for the trial work plan. What do you think? Well, I tell people again, the magical portion is you got to describe your circumstances and let Social Security determine. What do I mean by that? Let's say you had a job. Let's say you were working at a call center, 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. That's all you can do. Social Security is going to ask you, what do you mean by that's all you can do? Is that all you can do because that's all the hours they can give you? Can you do more than that? If you can do more than that, why aren't you doing more than that? Remember, you have to be prepared to describe your circumstances. Because I always tell people, I don't want you to sit here and think, I need to just stay on disability benefits, because most people really want to work and get back to the way their lives are. Almost every claimant that I've represented will always tell you this is not where they want it to be, receiving benefits from the government. That's not where they want it. They want to work. What I'm telling you is that if you're thinking about making the transition back into the workforce, be smart. Use the resources Social Security has. Test the market if you want to, but be prepared to explain. Because a lot of times what happens is people gloss over the significance of how they do things. And so what happens when Social Security cuts off their benefits, they get upset. But I'm like, but you didn't tell them details. Tell them. And keep in mind this. If you're going to test the job market and you're going to work, there's a good possibility that those earnings will alert Social Security that you're working. If you are planning on working, if you are working, just be mindful of your circumstances. And remember, you have to prove that you have not medically improved. So you have to be able to discuss with them your circumstances so that they fully understand your condition, so that this way your benefits can keep going. I hope you enjoyed the show. Stay tuned and we'll let you know what we're going to be coming back with next time. On our next edition of Q&A Social Security Disability Today, we're going to talk about what happens when you go to a consultative evaluation and the doctor tells you you're disabled, but you still get denied. Stay tuned. I think you'll like that show. It'll be a lot of fun. Again, my name is Attorney Anthony Rees, and this is your Q&A Social Security Disability Today.